Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, August 7th. Here's your Cup of Jones. Apologies to everybody right off the bat for not having an audio version of Cup of Jones last week. We have a jazz situation. I need to replace the jazz on Cup of Jones. Either that or I need to dig up the receipt from the Pond 5 purchase that I made of the jazz tunes that you have enjoyed for 2 years now on Cup of Jones. I took a very long pause, if you actually go back to the video version, because I'm sure people love to go back and rewatch 2+ hour episodes of Cup of Jones. I took a very long pause when I was sipping water, and I just kind of let that jazz music play by itself. And they caught it. They were like, wait, that's our jazz. And I was like, yeah, no, I bought that jazz. I couldn't tell you where that receipt is right now because I just got a bunch of Pond 5 receipts, so I'd have to dig through them and find out. But I've long talked about possibly updating the jazz. One issue with the jazz is it's just the raw track, and so particularly the jazz tune you're listening to right now has a very distinct ending. It's like a very slow, like, okay, and we're done. And then it's like, and starting back up again. And so, like, I might do, like, an edit of another jazz song that, like, repeats a little bit longer, maybe has, like, a 10-minute tail and not just, like, restarts every 3 minutes. But get your hands off our jazz. Waffle Truth. So, Waffle Truth, there will always be jazz, Waffle Truth. You don't have to worry about that. Whether it's the same jazz, I don't know. We might spice that up. I'm also way overdue for having some kind of a countdown intro to Cup of Jones. It's usually about the 3 or 4 minute mark that I start the episode after I go live, but this tune signals Cup of Jones time for me. Okay, well, maybe I'll dig up that receipt so we can keep it. But there's no possible way you can listen to the same theme for so many years. We gotta wrap it up at some point. We're still talking about Easy Living because it is still gradually approaching. It is not this weekend, it is the following weekend, Friday, August 17th. We will be going live at noon Pacific time. We will be going until, let me see, 48 hours, so you add 2 p.m. on Sunday, 50 total hours at a beach house, all of the allies. I will not be there at the top because I will be at jury duty. I will not be loading in any of the equipment. I will be taking it all down and getting it ready for all of the boys to take down, but last Easy Living, I threw a lot of that stuff in my car and took it down myself, but we're going to have to space it out and stuff it into all of the varied Allies cars, so that'll be a fun little parade of Ally equipment, all heading down to the beach. And we invite you all to hang out with us, twitch.tv/EasyAllies. I'm really excited about the beach house this year. I'm nervous about the television size. It's hard to gauge like how big a TV is from multiple photographs, but so the TV size is in question. We might have to bring down our own TV, but one of the big advantages for Easy Living this year that I'm very excited about is we're right on the beach. Before we were near the beach, we were in a beach community, and that was really fun, but the beaches themselves were mostly like boat ports. They were sand, but it was sand that was kind of like right out in front of someone else's house. And so we went out there, Ian and Don, to shoot some Easy Living, traveled a little bit to get to an actual beach. The beach will be right out of our front door or back door. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And hopefully, you'll see a little bit more of the beach, a little bit more of the actual tropical environment that we will be in, and not just all of us in a living room, playing video games. But we'll have our schedule up very soon, and as a very astute user, I don't know if this came up on a group stream or if somebody might have dropped this, but we will be announcing our new tiers at Easy Living next week, so we're putting the final touches on those, and we'll talk more about the future of Easy Allies via Patreon and what we want that next round of goals to be. Which, why the heck not? Brings me to our fun announcement for today. Ladies and gentlemen, we crossed 50K for the month of August. We did it. We wrapped up around 5,300. So unlike last month, where we were just $8 over the limit, so if you go to patreon.com/EasyAllies now, we're at 49 something. Again, that is not indicative of the payout. We actually got the payout in. We have been paid for the month of August, and we are ahead of that studio goal. And as I talked about with the timeline of basically how that's going to work, July is going to be us putting the final touches on what we want, who we're going to be communicating with, as far as where, what resources we're going to be using to try to find the best place we can possibly find. And then were we to hit that goal in August, August would basically not begin, but move forward that search in earnest. Basically meaning we would spend money on the search now, feeling comfortable that we could do that. And then September would be moving month. If we actually hit that goal again, that is going to be my personal goal for the month of August, to hit that 50K goal again. Many different ways that we can do that, incentivizing people near the end of the month, reminding them about our wonderful studio goal that we would like to maintain, setting up new tiers on Patreon, basically creating more public awareness in Easy Allies community that this is a big deal. Basically 3 of the most important months probably in the operation of Easy Allies, and it's time to move. It's very exciting. So I was very excited last month. I think that was indicative of a new turn here at Easy Allies, a new tier we just personally met, a new personal Easy Allies tier, kind of a new plateau that we had finally reached, and we're coasting along on our speeder bikes. But I think hitting that for the second month, for me, is almost more exciting because it shows that we can sustain that. It shows that we can now invest in our future, invest in, some capital, and actually making sure that it's not only us just driving around town looking for locations, but let's finish those promos. Yeah, we got lots of fun promos to do. Every time Bloodworth and I take some time to work on something, there's always something else we're not working on. So, but thank you, Hogue. Thank you, everybody. I mean, It's wonderful, the warm feelings and fuzzy vibes that we get from our community for us hitting that goal, but all of you are doing this. We aren't paying ourselves to do this job. We're all getting paid by our wonderful community on Patreon, and so I think it is a tremendous achievement not only to get us there, but to keep us there, because I was a little bit nervous that we were pushing forward and that we were hitting that goal, but that we were doing so at the expense of some people that were possibly paying more money than they felt comfortable doing. But we're like, I really, need Easy Allies to get there. I think this is very important for this group. And so I'm willing to do that for a couple months, but then I got to drop down. And so we didn't want to see that drop down below 50K once we actually get into a studio. And this seems like we've seen a lot of growth just in, $1 patrons, just in new patrons to Easy Allies. And as we've stated for the last several months, there's lots of ways that we can further incentivize people, further let people know. We had a great shout out. Props to Jake Baldino from Game Ranks, gave us a shout out when he was speaking about Spider-Man. Gave credit to our 44, hopefully mostly non-spoilery preview, 44-minute preview of Spider-Man, where I sat down with Kyle Bossman, and he gave us a shout, and we had some people being like, I didn't know Easy Allies was a thing. I loved game trailers so much, and I didn't know you reformed, and here we are over 2 years later, and I finally found you again. And so they're out there alone, weathering the storm of games journalism and general Twitch and YouTube fun stuff. And hopefully they can come back home and hang out with us here at Easy Allies. So there's still more work to do, but we can continue to do that work. And man, I'm telling you, some really fun, exciting things are coming up. If we can get that studio, if we can get that space, once we tell you about our goals and the new stuff that we have planned. So it's a very, very exciting time here at Easy Allies. It's a very tiring time. I finally finished Octopath Traveler this weekend. I did not defeat the final boss. I got to the final boss, got whooped, and then looked up online, saw the last ending cutscene, and I'm like, all right, I'm calling it done. And I'm actually going to sit down with Ben Moore after this show immediately on this desk and record our spoiler mode of Octopath Traveler and go through all of those 8 chapters and the weird ending and talk about how the characters interact and how all that stuff goes. But that took a lot of my time. Let me tell you, I think like 106 hours, I think it was my total tally when I finally beat all of the 8 bosses that you have to beat before you get to the final boss. But And that final boss is something else, I'm telling you. So good luck to everybody playing Octopath Traveler. And I hope you like Overcooked 2, because I streamed some Overcooked 2 with my lovely wife last night in a Spouse Quest episode, twitch.tv/EasyAllies, or you can go to Easy Allies Plays and check out the archive. We played the first 2 areas, and then immediately following, I loaded up another save because Amanda said that first save is off limits. That is just the save file that is exclusive to her and myself. So I loaded up save file number 2, played through everything that we played through in much less time because I was very familiar with the stages, and was only didn't get 3 stars on one stage. And I was like, well, after I finished it, I'm like, should I get 3 stars? And it's like, Jones, you don't have time. You got to work on Cup of Jones. Just move ahead and get all that stuff. And then I got 3 stars on everything else. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can do it. Because I know the allies are going to harass me. They'll be like, hey, Jones, 3 stars. You can get 3 stars. So I'm like, okay, let me go back. Tried 2 more times. Couldn't do it. So... you need 2 people, I think, for that. The throwing is really fascinating. Like, what's that added to the game? The fact that you can just chuck things across the map. So it's fun not only because I thought it's like there's no way that I'm actually going to be able to catch the thing once you throw it. That's kind of hard to get used to. But it's just nice when it's just like, I need some lettuce. And you're like, all right. And you're by the lettuce crate. You just lettuce, chuck it. You know, it's fun if you can get that strategy down. So we will be streaming with the Allies Overcooked 2 tonight. It is definitely a different vibe. If you don't have the 16 years of communication skills built up between Amanda and myself, if you only have the maybe 3-4 years of communication skills amongst the Easy Allies, and you get not 2 people playing the game, but 4 people playing the game, it's going to be very chaotic. We're going to have much less progress to account for after the 2 hours of the group stream tonight. So, so join us 6 p.m. twitch.tv/EasyAllies for our Tuesday night group stream. Presents will be opened. Curses will be slung. It'll be messy. So, yeah, and again, before we move on to feedback for business, thank you so much for helping us hit that 50K goal. That really is a big deal. And it sucks because I want to give you all fun announcements. I want to show you pictures. Hey, we saw this, business area. Hopefully we get that place, or this kind of looks neat. And I'd love to bring you all in on the decision-making process because I feel, in part, you deserve it because you are patrons of Easy Allies. You're financially supporting us and getting us to this point. But at the same time, I think little updates like that can be very confusing for the audience because then all that information starts to get passed around and like, hey, look at the studio we're going to get. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get that studio. Amanda and I really thought we were going to get the house before we got this house. We gave an offer. We actually went out to dinner to celebrate. And then the next day they ended up giving the house to their friends. We were like, okay. So you never know with real estate in Los Angeles until you are actually moved in or until you're making those final steps. You cannot confirm. And so I don't want to seem like I'm confirming things or put something out there that messes with expectations of what that studio can be. And so I want to keep you up to date as much as I can. But I apologize if you're like, hey, we haven't really gotten a lot of updates about that studio. What's going on? It's not because nothing is going on. It's because the updates we have to give you would only flame the fires of the passions. And for some people, the fears. You know, a lot of people are like, I don't want Easy Allies to change. I really like how things are going. I like the garage. I like the vibe. And I don't want that vibe to change. It will be a evolved vibe. We will be assuming our next form. We gotta suck that energy up. Our hair's gonna turn blonde. We're gonna be able to do the big attacks, and then we're gonna win the fighting game match against the internet. I don't know. Chum Nguyen jumped in and let me know. I was just watching Community Showcase. This is not officially feedback business yet. I was just watching Community Showcase and heard you saying my name, which surprised me because I didn't submit anything. After looking into it, the one who did was named Tyson Wen. I just wanted to correct it since I didn't make it. So apologies, Tyson Wen, that I mispronounced your name, but I pronounced it correctly there. So if you go back and watch Community Showcase, your hair will not turn blonde. Hey, Again, Bloodworth, we don't want to confirm or deny anything with the new studio, you know? I mean, so M Bun thinks it'll turn blue. Yeah, Blondeworth. You never know, you know? I mean, this used to be blonde. This used to be very blonde. If you follow me on Twitter, every now and then I post pictures of my young self, and this was bright blonde. Jones, YouTube's audio library is free to use jazz. That's pretty good if you want to find some tracks on there instead of digging for a receipt. Sure, but I mean, as you've seen, some people have a very strong emotional connection to the jazz that we've already provided. So, if that is the jazz they want, that is the jazz they shall receive. It'll be a mix. It'll be a mix of new and old jazz. We just gotta change. We just gotta spice up the jazz. We can do the same old jazz, but I don't want to take too long of a pause, otherwise we'll get nailed again. Feedback for business. Jason Wallstrom, can we get an evil allies month where you guys have evil pointy goatees for every show and stream for that allotted 30 days? It would be fun and silly. Did I write that down? Yeah. I don't know about a month, but evil allies can potentially be fun. I can imagine some allies that would not be necessarily cool with that. Curious how Blood chimes in on evil allies. But it might be fun to do like a tournament called Evil Allies, or like a week-long event where we all troll each other, or, you know, it's like we talked about having, I can't believe where the conversation came up. My brother did this in college, but I really dug. But they had a Nerf war. So my brother went to, my brother's an actor. I used to be an actor, but then I got into video production. But my brother remained an actor and is doing the Crucible right now at the Theatricum Botanicum in Topanga Canyon. So if you're in Los Angeles, you want to go see some good theater, go see the Crucible at the Theatricum Botanicum. But my brother, when he was at Boston University, had a competition amongst his friends where they all basically had a Nerf war, but it was over like days and days and days. So you basically had to plan when you wanted to do the hit. You know, you had to like camp outside of their dorm, like in a bush, and then just hit them, you know, when they were coming in. And one guy dressed in drag. One guy like actually like walked down the street like in a muumuu and a wig, you know, and then just like popped out, you know, like what is that? The Untouchables? Roger Rabbit? What movie am I thinking of where somebody's in drag and then like pops out with a weapon and takes out somebody? Out of some crazy mob comedy? I don't know. Christoph Laurie, I'm enjoying the countdowns as an addition to my regular weekly media consumptions. The talk about the old top 10 man babes on Frame Trap and the great top 10 silver foxes made me wonder if you would rule out doing a ranking of female characters based on their attractiveness, and if so, why? I love the assumption that we probably would. There's definitely like a leading with that question of like, let me guess, you're not going to do ladies. We probably won't do ladies, but there's a very good reason why. And that's not because we morally have some objection, but if you go back to game trailers, if you go back to ye old GT top 10s, which I believe most of them are still archived on youtube.com/game trailers, now owned and operated by IGN, we did that list like 6 times. We did top 10 women in gaming, top 10 babes, top 10. I think we did that at least 3. And some of them was sponsored by Axe body spray. Like we just did that so many times. And so I think, first of all, I think just doing something on attractiveness, I don't think it was necessarily attractiveness only with silver foxes. Like it was kind of like fitting the perfect paradigm of the old grizzly gray-haired, machismo man. And so I think that's not just like someone who's attractive with gray hair. I think there was more to it than that. And so if we were to have something like a countdown like that, and keep in mind, a lot of our countdowns are planned very far in the future, so even if we were to decide to do this, this is not something you wouldn't see. This is something you wouldn't see until 2019, but if we were to do that, it would have to be something a little bit more directed than just like pretty or attractive. I don't think that would make a very interesting list. Wouldn't make a list that the allies would be super excited about having a conversation about, and I think we would have very silly arguments about, you know, because you have 9 people, all of them have different definitions of what attractiveness is, and the entries that they would write wouldn't necessarily be that fun. Like it was fun to write those Silver Foxes entries. It was fun, you know, to talk about Sully. That was the entry that I wrote, you know, to talk about Sully from Uncharted and write him in kind of a cheeky comedic way. And if I was just going to talk about like how attractive, you know, Elise is from SSX, just be weird. It's not something where I get inspired like thinking of writing about that. You got to have a little bit more of an angle. So if we come up with a funny angle, then never say never. But off the top of our heads, whenever we think about like, oh yeah, the top 10 babes we expect to do a GT, it's just like, ugh. It's hard to get over something like that. Brandon K. Gann, now that we're 3 days away from QuakeCon, I was wondering, will EZA have a live reaction stream to the keynote? It will have the world premiere gameplay of Doom Eternal, plus a couple of other games will be covered. It'll be Friday, August 10th at 9 a.m. PT, so I wasn't sure if the early time on a weekday would warrant a stream with some of the allies, considering it's not a major keynote from something bigger like TGS, Gamescom, or Paris Games Week, but I wanted to double check nonetheless. Blood can maybe help me with this one. I don't know if we confirmed it or put it on the calendar, but I do know that a rallying cry went out from Mr. Michael P. Huber to see who would like to do a live stream of this keynote. I know Huber is very excited. So That might go down multiple ways. That might go down here. That might also... There's stream buckles. Oh, no. We haven't dropped any frames over here, so it's not XSplit. There's a Doom reaction stream on the calendar for Friday. Okay, sorry. I checked the schedule, I think, 2 days... Yesterday when I grabbed this, but I didn't see it on there. Doom reaction stream, yeah. So... Oh, no. The stream has been weird since I started. I'm not dropping any frames here on XSplit, and that's like the main thing. I can see dropping frames over here. It's like, oh no. But, okay, maybe it will skip ahead and stop sometimes, and it seems like it's knocking everything to low quality. Well, that ain't good. Okay, so I guess I should maybe stop. Let me stop, and I'll come back. We'll try this again. Apologies, Bloodworth, if that's going to mess up. Maybe we'll have to download and repost this later. But, sorry. See you in a sec. Hey everybody, let me know if I'm back. I gotta talk over the jazz, otherwise the jazz comes for you. The jazz men call you on the phone. Hey, that's our jazz. You're like, no, I bought the jazz. Do you have the receipt for the jazz? Geez, I don't know. So Blood's not having issues. Hey, what's up? I'm back. Hey everybody. All right. Sam Sorensen, YouTube promotion notes. It is against, so yeah, if there's more issues, sorry, I'm not seeing evidence of that here. I can't just like snap my fingers and make the internet better or something. But if it goes bad again, YouTube, we actually don't really have that bad of performance issues as far as I know on Cup of Jones in the past. It's not really something that I hear that often from people. So apologies. Better so far. Okay. YouTube promotion notes from Sam Sorensen. It is against their terms of service to create a video directing users to a competing streaming site. Linus Tech had their YouTube streaming rights taken away from a time, months, because of doing this for their WAN show, or WAN show. That's unfortunate. We have done promos in the past that have said, hey, go check out our thing. That's not on this website. Yeah, we will definitely be, we are alerted to that, and hopefully that will not be an issue in the future, but we're directing people all over the place. We're directing people to Patreon, directing people to Twitch, directing people to Twitter, to Facebook, so, well, thank you. This is see the Death Star? Got my Star Wars shirt on today. I'm Ryan. Every week I hear fellow patrons requesting audio versions of various EZA content, and I wanted to try to broadcast a solution that works very well for me. Some people may not realize that YouTube audio will continue to play on your phone while the screen is off with a YouTube Premium account, thus rendering all EZA content on YouTube as audio form. I'm not trying to shill for YouTube or Google, but I find this feature simply invaluable. Personally, I use a Google Play Music Premium's family account, which includes YouTube Premium for up to 6 accounts. Plus, Google Play Music has decent podcast integration. I'm able to listen to so much content, EZA or otherwise, while at work or while exercising thanks to this. I have no affiliation with Google, and they could remove this feature at any time on a whim, but I find this to be an elegant and essential method for consuming EZA content in audio form. Did you know this feature was available? I did, but Stefan Vlemix jumps in with a very valuable comment, which is, you're missing one vital point. YouTube Premium isn't available in a lot of countries. Currently, it's available in Australia, Austria, Canada, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Mexico, New Zealand, Norway, Russia, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, the UK, and USA. Also, people might not want to get just another subscription on something next to the subscriptions they already have. And on top of that, a lot of the people like to listen to their audio stuff on podcast apps that track what they already listen to. So yeah, this is a common question. Why isn't Huber Syndrome an audio only? Why are the spoiler modes an audio only? Although I think they are. Yeah, we are beat by beat, show by show, slowly adding more audio versions. Again, it's something we don't want to do across the board because we don't want to just have double posts of everything that we do on Patreon, which is how we can get it on people's feeds. Currently, one common question that we got on Cup of Jones that I have an answer for, actually, because I checked in with Kyle, which is, why aren't you guys on Spotify? And it's because they didn't accept us. We've applied for Spotify several times and we haven't gotten in. So we see brand new podcasts with like 5 viewers get into Spotify right away, and we don't know what we're doing wrong. So we will try again in the future and hopefully make that happen. Sean Stark, I recently got more into Kind of Funny. I love it says kind of funny. I wonder if that's a spell check. Kinda funny. That led me to Collider's Movie Trivia Schmodown. I feel that at least a few of you are pretty knowledgeable with movies. Why not give it a shot? Challenge the Kinda Funny or Funhouse crew. They've both appeared on it. It would probably be fun, and it would be another way of getting the Easy A name out there. Yeah, I love the Schmodown. I love Miss Movies. I've been on her podcast, Film Therapy, been on her traditional movie podcast, just saw her at Comic-Con, and so I follow her and follow a lot of the stuff that she does, and she is very involved with the Movie Trivia Schmodown. Yeah, actually when Greg Miller and I came to, actually, no, I don't think that was the Movie Trivia Schmodown. I think that was at Defy Media with Screen Junkies, but that might have been the Schmodown. I don't know. Screen Junkies does stuff with the Schmodown every now and then, But I believe Greg was on that when he was in town when we talked about Batman and Superman, but that might have been another event. Don't quote me on that. Megan Leinart, I love that the community showcase exists and the Patreon is growing every day, but along with this comes more and more submissions every month, and I can imagine this getting tougher to handle as it grows even more. Have you ever thought of doing a separate show just dedicated to the comments, letters, and unboxing presents? Almost like an Easy A mailbag show instead of including the comments in the showcase. I think this would help make the showcase more focused on showcasing the art, photos, and music, while the comments and presents still get the attention as well. With them split up, they can get some more time for discussion and viewing instead of having to rush through them. Not every ally needs to be present either. I'm not sure how this would affect the reward tiers, so this is honestly just shooting some ideas around, so no need to take this seriously at all. I do take it seriously, and it is an issue. Just there's lots of talking here. Sorry. I got, need to blow honk the schnoz. There's a lot of issues potentially with, and this is actually going to be our editorial today, talking about how many questions there are on Cup of Jones, how many repeat questions there are on Cup of Jones, and what can be done about that. Whew. Actually, I can mute it from here. I should have muted the mic. Oh well. This specifically is saying take the comments out of the showcase and have it just be the showcase, have it just be an art showcase. We have gotten comments on the showcase before from people that said, it's frustrating because I feel that if I created a video that I would be putting myself out there more as an artist, I would be representing myself more, there'd be more stuff to consume than there would be just writing comments. Would you consider making the word count, bigger for comments so that they can compete with people that are making videos? The reason that I'm not going to do that is because I read most of the comments on the showcase, and I hand the clipboard off to the ally that I'm sitting on the couch with sometimes to take a little break. But even just reading all of that stuff, Cup of Jones is okay, but showcase, actually my voice starts to get a little tired by the end of it, and so I'm nervous that if I push that even further, start having submissions that are longer than a full page, then that's going to be very hard to get through all of that just in one sitting and just on one or two cups of water. But it makes me think that there are people that write comments for the showcase specifically that very much like their comments being included. And we'll get into this later, but some people talked about maybe having the video and music stuff beforehand, doing that first and then doing the comments after for the showcase. They're like, I think that would retain viewership. That would make that show a little bit more exciting. Making the showcase exciting or drawing more viewers into the showcase is not necessarily the goal or the reason the showcase exists. The showcase exists to showcase our community. And so I look at that show as an opportunity for people to come in and hang out and see what other allies are working on, not necessarily something that's going to like get the word out about Easy Allies or really like, bring us a ton of new subs on YouTube or get a bunch of views just by itself. I do not track views on the showcase. It is not something that, this has to be a YouTube issue, which the way we're reporting different problems at different times. Yeah, sorry. A lot of people are saying they're still getting issues. Nothing I can do about it. I'm just going to do the best I can. I'm curious to watch this later. I wonder if this is going to be saved correctly and not have any issues on the back end. Daniel Garza Andrade, what would you do if Easy A hadn't been so successful as it is right now? What if people didn't believe in the project? Did you have a time frame to give this a shot? Didn't necessarily have a time frame. We always said that we were going to do our Tuesday night group stream and we were going to do the podcast, and that was going to be the bare minimum. So if we were getting $5 a month, we would still do that. I don't know if we would still be doing that if we'd only gotten $5 a month. It would be interesting if we hadn't hit that first goal. The $200 goal was the couch, so we got the couch. And I believe the first goal was Huber syndrome, so maybe we would be doing like one show in the podcast, and that would be really interesting. It'd be interesting if like the podcast was the only way you could get a hold of the Allies. I wonder if there's a way that like all of us could be included in every episode of the podcast or something. But we didn't have a time frame on it. We didn't have a deadline. There wasn't a day that we all said, okay, we're going to give this 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, and then if we don't hit this financial amount, then we're going to leave. I can't speak on behalf of the rest of the Allies as far as like what their limits were, but I probably was stuck around with this and would have been happy for the boys to come over. If I had moved on to another job, maybe got another like a producing job somewhere, or a job editing something for someone, it would have been fun to still connect with the video games industry, connect with my friends back at Game Trailers, and still hang out. But fortunately, it was successful, is successful, and will continue to be successful. Judging by our success, judging by our growth, and the fact that we hit 50K for the month of August. Matt Brookbank, would it be beneficial if your patrons made requests to Patreon directly vis-a-vis joint audio video posts? Talked about this in the past, said that one of the reasons why you don't get audio versions of stuff is because we would have to do a separate post on Patreon, and we don't want to do double posts for everything that we post on Patreon, and it would be very convenient and I think very clean if you could go to a video post and then have us in the same video post also post an audio file. So a joint video audio post on Patreon. And Matt is saying, would it help you if we yelled at Patreon and told them to do that? And yes, it would, Matt. Helping them see demand for a feature like that, or would it maybe be unhelpful and muddy the water? It would not muddy the water. It would not be unhelpful. If anything goes wrong, comments disappearing, posts looking weird potentially. If there's anything that you do not like about the Patreon experience, then I think it would be advantageous for you to reach out to Patreon and maybe load up their Q&A sections or jump into their forum and say, hey, I am a proud fan of Easy Allies, and I think they would be better if there was this functionality on the website. In a lot of ways, we are limited here by what we can do. Case in point, the live streaming service via YouTube that is available and is currently not working very well, but that is available on Patreon that lets me do Cup of Jones live every week. Javier Menchaca. Quick suggestion for easy living game to play Pokemon Coliseum on the GameCube. You play as a bad guy who can catch and steal other trainers' Pokemon mid-battle, completely in 3D too. Thought you'd enjoy it based on your Pokemon philosophizing comments in the past. We have locked down the schedule for Easy Living of all the games that we are going to be playing. Pokemon Coliseum is not on the list, unfortunately, but maybe that's something that we can bring down and have just in case we can use as a backup. So any Easy Living game suggestions now? Apologies, we've had a lot in the past. I've seen a lot of people reach out via Twitter. Some people on Cup of Jones have mentioned stuff. Some people when we stream. If you wanted us to play a game and it does not make it an Easy Living, we apologize. There's going to be less games this year than there were last year. We felt that it was weird popping in and just playing a game for an hour. Some people left the stream and then they'd come back in and be like, wait, I totally missed that game. Or it feels like right when that game started getting good, then you jump to another game. And so we wanted to spend a little more time with each game. We have a couple full playthroughs in there, and it's surprising how quick that list added up. Once you factor in the fact that you got to sleep and that all of the allies have to be accounted for and playing the games that they want to play, the list fills up quick. So I don't, that's not saying that there won't be some little 1 hour intervals there with games, but most of the games will be 2 hours or more. So we'll see how that goes. But that was one of the takeaways that we had from Easy Living last year. 13AG. Rockstar recently did a collaboration with Facebook, where Facebook gaming creator friends stream GTA Online and viewers can grab random GTA cash drops during the stream. I feel like it's an interesting idea. Do you think you can pull some strings and make a special Facebook Easy A stream happen? I try to keep my palms as greasy as possible whenever I deal with Rockstar. I'm hearing rumblings of maybe a Red Dead Redemption 2 preview event happening sometime soon that I haven't been invited to. I obviously want to be on the ground floor anytime that they launch any kind of initiative. They do a lot of GTA Online streams. I saw our good friends our old colleagues. I mean, they're still technically colleagues, but we used to be in the same office. But Smosh Games regularly streams GTA Online, and I believe they've done special events with Rockstar in the past. I would be more than happy to do that. I have reached out to Rockstar and expressed interest in doing that. I think that is something that they want to do with people who are very, very big names, very, very big places to visit streaming stuff on the internet, and we are certainly popular in our own right, but maybe not Rockstar popular. But yeah, you don't have to twist my arm, man. That's something I definitely want to do. Iberson Polita. First, regarding the EZA audience, 2 questions from Iberson. Just Mr. Polita, in the future, if you're going to leave questions, 1 question, please, per episode. First, regarding the EZA audience, I saw the Brazilian Mega Drive stream, and I've seen quite a few Brazilians around in love and respect and such. And as a Brazilian myself, I was wondering if you could share a little bit of the information regarding the EZA international community on Patreon and YouTube. Is it a big part of the Patreon? Were you guys intrigued by your audience size in different countries? Just curious about where the overall EZA international community comes from. All over the place. I don't think any one country is represented sizably. Bloodworth checks these numbers more than I do, so maybe he can correct me on this. But I know that we are represented well across the world. I know that we have lots of people from different countries chiming in. I don't know how big those numbers are within each country. I know that there are definite names that pop up. From Russia, from someone chimed in from Norway, because Norway is my home country, and so I was not born in Norway, but I am Norwegian. I know we got patrons all over the place. But it reminds me of Christopher Tui's from Denmark. There we go. So I guess it helps maybe once everybody chimes in. Barry Bumfroyd is from Scotland. But Sweden, we got 2 Swedens. German Scientist TV is from Sweden. Benny Samuelson is from Sweden. Marco Oliveira is from Brazil. Arimasanis is from Lithuania. Jesper Lawson's from Denmark. Gabriel Grunberg's from Sweden. Lank is from the Netherlands. Ferris96 is from Germany. Zephyr Moon is an American but living in the EU. Alex Moffat's from Oregon. Thank you, Alex. Hids L is from Sweden. Joyce Markey is from France. Stink Mushroom is from Belgium. Next Dex is from Germany. Leonardo Jones is from Brazil. This is great because this is a lot of people chiming in from Otoshigami is from Hyrule. Thank you very much, Otoshigami. This is great because I think these are names a lot of people I don't usually see in chat. So it's wonderful people chiming in from all sorts of people. Diego Luches is from Venezuela. I love it. Thank you, everybody. Second, again from Mr. Polita. I know you pick people who are available to record after the podcast, but I'd love to have, if possible, a Trailer Jones more technical with you, obviously, Ian, and Don. Given that you are all video editors, I think it would be quite cool to see what you all would think about the trailers. Not that I dislike the other allies' views and opinions. Yes! We don't, Don usually does not record on the podcast. Sometimes he sneaks in and makes a little guest appearance, but tough to get Don. So I would have to get Don on another day that wouldn't be after the podcast, because then I have to wait. If we do it after the podcast, he'd have to wait for the podcast. If we do it before the podcast people would have to wait for Trailer Jones to finish. Either way, people will be waiting around not doing anything, so maybe we can do a Trailer Jones one day. If it is kind of a dry month, maybe I can have a production-focused Trailer Jones and have them on. That's a wonderful idea. VG Junkie, how do you feel about making spoiler mode more of a regular part of your coverage cycle and content production? Some previews, a frame trap segment, and a review are great, but I think that it will be really beneficial. What will be beneficial is the patron-exclusive spoiler discussion that comes with each major release. I think that the major area we're lacking is that you guys play a lot of big games, but the venue to talk about it unfiltered and post-completion is a bit lacking. Frame Trap is great, but it's limited to a bi-weekly show with only 2 guests at a time. I brought it up to Ben, and he said you guys were planning to do more. I just want to emphasize how much more I think would work. And for slow periods, maybe even do more major games from the past, like Final Fantasy 15 or the Nier Automata spoiler mode we never got. You've got plenty of other good games that warrant it because of there being aspects that you wouldn't want to spoil elsewhere. I know that a major hurdle is that 2 people need to have played a game for a spoiler mode, but I feel like for the big releases, that will usually be the case. VG Junkie, I'm telling you it is not. And there's got to be a way to get around the 2-person requirement for us to get some spoiler coverage of big games. I think maybe one of the ways that we can solve this moving forward. And I say this on Cup of Jones knowing that a lot of the people that absorb Easy Allies content are not here on Patreon or not here on Cup of Jones, and so will not hear me say this ever. But by the time many allies have played a game enough to make a spoiler mode, it's like 2 or 3 months later. And we think, well, we kind of missed the boat there. We don't feel we missed the boat on Octopath Traveler, which we're going to be recording immediately after this Cup of Jones, because like Ben and I literally just finished the game. Like it has been our primary focus, one of our primary focuses recently. I know the YouTube has lists of traffic by country, but I'm not finding it easily at the moment. But maybe, Blood, if you're here live, Blood will drop that in chat, and you can get more information on our international community. And thanks for everybody for saying what country you were from. That was fun. I think we've done that before on Cup of Jones, and it's always fun to do every 6 months or so. And yeah, I just know it seems easy. Like, you guys are all playing games. You just all be working on the same games at the same time. This is very much not the case. If you have something like an Octopath Traveler or a Dragon Quest or a Persona, or near Automata, many hours you have to put into that game. Very much not the case. That's that several people can say, I'm going to put almost as much focus on this game as the person reviewing it, and then not then put focus on streams, on the own shows that I'm producing, on events maybe that we're doing, on again, in the case of some of us who do jobs on the side of other things that I have going on in my life. And so getting us all together for the same thing, I think one way we could up the ante of the number of spoiler modes that we do, case in point, our Mission Impossible Fallout spoiler mode that you can check out exclusively on patreon.com/easyallies, is that it's a movie. It's really simple. You just go check it out the night before, and then you're open to talk about it the next day. I did one earlier in July for Ant-Man and the Wasp with Ian and Mr. Michael Damiani. So if you're down with movie spoiler modes, then that's one way that we can increase it. But games take time, and even if a game is only like 15 hours long, in the case of Banner Saga 3, I know Michael Huber loves the Banner Saga series, but he just finished reviewing Dead Cells. He's moving on to something else, and so it's tough to make time just for a spoiler mode. And like many other things that people are like, this is a show that I want you to do, focusing on one thing in particular and not focusing on something else is then again drawing the ire of the people who are expecting you to produce that other thing that you're not doing because you're doing spoiler mode. So it's a moving target. John White, let me preface this by saying I'm a big fan of the Community Showcase streams, and the way the show has evolved from its inception is a big success story for Easy Allies. Your engagement with everyone in the community is a large reason for why you guys are so successful. With that being said, would you ever consider moving the showcase off a Patreon tier and over to a monetary goal akin to friend code or reaction shots? Here's my thought process. As the showcase streams have continued to grow in length, you have mentioned that it is fortunate that everyone subscribing at that tier does not submit, or the show would be untenable. As Easy Allies grows, the scenario grows increasingly more likely as more patrons are gained. Additionally, the $10 is a unique price point, where many people outside of Patreon likely pay for other monthly subscriptions such as Netflix or Amazon Prime. I think it is essentially a threshold for essentially your higher tier offerings, and therefore offers a lot of incentive for what is offered. With $5 patrons outpacing $10 patrons on a scale of roughly 4 to 1, I think there is an opportunity to convert more people to a more universally enticing tier. If you were to move Community Showcase off of this tier, you could then highlight the submissions you receive each month, still doing your stream, but could control the length moving forward. I do not perceive it as a show that would be seen as an overwhelming number, that would see an overwhelming number of new submissions if available to everyone, but if so, you'd be able to curate the show since you'd no longer be tied to addressing every submission. Still be rough to just say no to people that are submitting something. On the flip side to this, of course, is a possibility that submissions may be cut for time or moved to future showcases, which may bother longtime supporters of the show. I can almost guarantee that. I just think that this helps to ensure the long-term viability of the show while still offering a new option at a valuable tier. Of course, a big part of the suggestion relies on what would replace Community Showcase at $10, and I do not have the answer for that, but I'm sure internally you guys have kicked around some ideas. I feel super awkward making suggestions like this since I know that no one knows the business better than the 9 people who live it 24/7. So as always, thank you for your time. Yeah, I have thought about possibly upping the tier of Community Showcase. I mean, you look at the $5 tier, you getting stuff early. You look at $20. I believe $20 or $25 is the tier for the Q&A. So for that, you get a chance to ask a question that may or may not get answered, in a 2-hour conversation of all of the allies, where for just $10, you can make a comment that definitely will get answered for all of us sitting down. So like maybe we could swap those. I don't know. I think possibly looking at those tiers, that could be reevaluated someday. I think that's something that we've had a little more enthusiasm, a little more confidence in creating new tiers and creating new goals specifically, whereas going back and shuffling around our available tiers, restructuring what the value that people have been getting for their money for so many months and a couple years now at Easy Allies is a little more nerve-wracking and is something that we do knowing that could possibly upset the community in a negative way. So trying to change prices on a tier is pretty difficult, by the way, and there's that, says Daniel Bloodworth in chat. Yeah, I'm not that concerned. Again, the editorial later today will talk about just how many questions we get and how many repeat questions we get and how long these Q&A shows are getting here at Easy Allies and possible ways we could address that in the future. Socially awkward disco penguin. So is this penguin only socially awkward at discos, or is this a socially awkward penguin, but when that penguin goes to the disco, all of the social awkwardness just melts away and the penguin is allowed to be themselves and dance the night away? The comment and suggestion from this episode about limiting Hall of Greats so that allies had to bring a game that the others hadn't played got me thinking. Have the allies considered limiting candidates for an episode to a certain system, console era, or decade, such as 16-bit era, 90s PC games, or only arcade games? We had this question before, but it's framed a little differently. I know you mentioned that you were not that comfortable limiting what games the allies can bring to Hall of Greats, yet in your previous mini editorial, you lamented that Huber rebutted your GTA 3 pick with, why didn't you bring GTA 5? I'm not quite sure the point you're making there, Mr. Penguin, because it seems like you just confirmed what I said. Like, I don't think we should limit what games, and then I lamented that Huber said that I should bring a game. So yeah, I lamented the fact that he told me what game to bring, because I don't want people to be limited with what games they bring. So that seems to be in line. I'm not sure what your rebuttal there. Normalizing the candidates so that they have some general common attribute could help focus the Q&A portion to avoid the type of question or the which version issue for which games, re-releases or remasters, and focus on gameplay or story elements that may not have worked or what really made the game special over its peers. I realize the ideal of Hall of Greats is to debate and agree on the timeless games that are great rather than were great in their time, and that is fun and that is a fun and interesting way, interesting to debate why Pong deserves a spot next to Super Metroid. But with such a limited time for discussion, it can be difficult to fully explore those arguments. It might also help might help diversify the selections and promote inclusion of games that might otherwise get overlooked when you have the entire history of gaming to choose from. Would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. Sure. Here are my thoughts on the matter. Penguin? There's so many factors that go into what Hall of Greats is going to be like in the future. One of the things that we haven't really talked about yet is kind of this tipping point of your average top 20, top 30 games. So if you ever look at your top 100 games, IGN loves to do it, Games Radar does it, like everybody does it, but Game Trailers, we were going to do it back in the day, but it got canceled. And you always see your common top like 20s, your Half-Life 2s, your Super Mario Brothers 3s, your Super Mario Brothers, your Super Mario Worlds, your Super Mario 64s, your Ocarina of Times, your Chrono Triggers, like your games that you always just kind of look forward to and seeing like that they're going to pop up in the end, and it's less of a what's going to be in the top 10 whenever somebody does a top 100. It's what order are these games that we're all familiar with going to be in, and at some point Hall of Greats is going to get past that. At some point Hall of Greats, if we keep this whole crazy thing going for years and years to come, is going to get to a point where we're going to have to start digging for some really weird stuff. And so I think that is even if we were to limit people to specific consoles or eras, I think you're going to start to find that creativity. It's just going to kind of naturally out of the decision-making process for Hall of Greats, where we're not going to have these big standout games to fall back on. We're going to have to start bringing some weird stuff, and then I think that's really interesting. That's what I'm really looking forward to, are those episodes of Hall of Greats. And when you talk about it would help focus the Q&A portion to avoid the type of question of which version or the other issues that potentially get in the way of that 5-minute mark. That's on the allies. It's on each of the allies to decide what they want to fill with those 5 minutes. And if somebody wants to bring the current version of Shadow of the Colossus instead of the PS2 version, and make that a part of their thing, they're like, no, it's important for me to bring Shadow of the Colossus, knowing that there is a little bit of confusion over what is the better version of the game, or what game would most likely get into Hall of Greats if you were to specify. And I believe the rule set now is that every game fits, so that if you bring Resident Evil, that both versions are done. The remake is also included, I guess. I guess we can't bring the original, it's like, that gets a little muddy for me. I did not vote for that rule, but I was outvoted. But I think the less confusing those 5 minutes can be, the better case you can make for your game. And some people get frustrated because they feel that people make a really good case for games, and games don't get in because they are not as popular as other games. I have not had any game get into Hall of Greats yet. I feel that I have made good cases for some of my games, maybe better cases for some other, rather than others. But that's on me. I mean, making the case is on me, but especially not getting my games in there is on me, because I did not pick games that were going to be competitive given how old Hall of Greats is, given that we're only at like the 6th or 7th episode of the show, that I should know what types of games would be acceptable, what types of games would be a win, and not just me expressing my gaming history and the games that I am passionate about and that I have a past with, but games that I know that the other allies are going to be attracted to as well. And so all of that comes into play. And so when people say you should just do the 16-bit era, you're going to have the same problems. The same stuff is going to happen. You're going to see people bringing games that some people are going to bring games that they know are going to win. Some people are going to bring games that they know are going to be obscure. Some people are going to bring games that they want to make a case for. Some people are going to bring games that touch themselves personally, that are important to their history in this industry. It's just going to be 16 bits. I don't think you're going to alleviate all these problems. You're just going to narrow it, which may or may not be a bad idea. And considering how many times we've gotten this suggestion, it's something that I will throw at the allies before the next Hall of Greats. And if it doesn't happen, then you know how that vote went down. And Bloodworth chimes in, I think there's a pretty big difference between saying different console and arcade versions of Street Fighter 2 and something like Resident Evil 2, which is a different game with the same scenario. There is a big difference, but again, that difference needs to be stated. We need to understand that difference. And so if you bring a game like Street Fighter 2 and we're like, wait, what version of Street Fighter 2? And you're just like, the arcade and the Super Nintendo and Hyper Fighting and the other remake they did later and the updates that you've seen on Wii U, and it's like and this SNES Classic version, and it's like that takes time out of your 5 minute deliberation, and so you can't complain about that. Well, I had to spend so much time letting people know what version. It's like, you decided to bring Street Fighter 2. That was your call. Versus picking, something like Journey, which is like, there's not that much of an argument over what version of Journey we're all talking about. All versions are pretty much the same. Those are all basically still just Street Fighter 2, though. Again, it's up to each person's vote to decide that. Alexander Zirianov, speaking of people from other countries, Alexander Zirianov, hailing from Russia. On the last Cup of Jones, when you've talked about Mass Effect 3, you've said that you don't want developers to do something only because fans wanted it. I feel that the same is happening with Box Peak. Kyle recently announced that he plans to split Box Peak into 2 seasons and release the first 5 episodes before the rest is done. I have not talked about this on Cup of Jones because when it comes to in the sense of true auteurship with Box Peak, when it is Kyle's show, I wait for Kyle to make these announcements, and I really wait for the production schedule to roll out before I pass this information on to you, the Cup of Jones audience. So there you go. But Kyle said that, and we'll see how that works out. I feel the Box Peak wasn't planned and written with this split in mind, and Kyle is doing this only because he feels the pressure from the fans and patrons. That is not true. I'll get to that in a second. Also, I guess that this pressure was partly created by regular updates from Kyle. Or Pyle, since he regularly sets time goals only to find out that he can't reach them. I feel that Box Peak production should go dark and resurface again only when the whole series is ready. This approach seems to be working for retrospectives and Game Sleuth, which are also Patreon-funded goals that were initially promised to be delivered on a timely basis. What do you think? First of all, it's 120% Kyle's decision. This is entirely on Kyle. Second of all, Kyle is not doing this because he feels pressure from the fans and the patrons. Kyle is doing this because he feels pressure from Kyle. Kyle is his own worst enemy. He's his own biggest critic. And Kyle wants to get this stuff done. Kyle wants to, he wants people to watch this. He wants to get feedback. He wants to put this out into the world, have people see it, have people talk about it. He wants this to be a reality. He wants this to stop being something that is just only existing in his mind and his apartment, and wants this to be something that is being enjoyed by the community here at Easy Allies. So Alexander just powers through those subtitles, by the way. Pretty impressed by how quickly they get submitted. Of course, I can't read any of those to know how good they are, but thank you, Alexander Zirianov, for providing foreign language subtitles for our videos on YouTube. But yeah, I think, again, like Game Sleuth, we check in with Damiani, and it's up to Damiani to figure out how much time he's willing to put on that show, as opposed to the other duties that he has with streaming and reviews, and some of our accounts that he manages. And same thing with retrospectives. It's on the next person that wants to produce a retrospective. We haven't talked about that a lot. There is a retrospective that is actively in production right now, but is not something that we talk about because it is on the creator, the producer of that retrospective, to then decide how that's going to be rolled out, how that production is going, who's involved, who's writing what, who's cutting what, who's playing what. And with Kyle, the buck stops with him. I mean, whereas the retro that we're working on right now, there's many hands on deck working on it. Game Sleuth is just a captured and written by Michael Damiani, but is voiced by me and is cut often by Don Casanova. And so again, Box Peak is just Kyle, and so we have to rely on Kyle when it comes to how much he can produce, when he wants that stuff to be finished. And if Kyle comes to us and says, "Hey, I have an idea. I think we can roll out this stuff, get people informed on this show." There is a natural break at the end of episode 5, to split things up into 2 seasons. It is not unheard of to have a 5-episode arc of a show. Doctor Who does that all the time, where they'll have like a mid-season break. And so I am number one, more than anything, I want Box Peak to go the way Kyle Bossman wants it to go. Number 2, I'm excited about having people watch Box Peak finally, and getting that done, and having Kyle get recognized for all of the work that he's been doing. Kyle will show up exhausted to our shoots, to our streams, and we'll plan things ahead and be scheduling, and then he'll say, case in point, Evo. Kyle was not there for our Evo stream, but he said, "Hey, I'm going to be working on Box Peak. If I can finish up Box Peak, then I will make it to our Evo stream." He was not there, so a good example of him just spending a lot of time working on Box Peak. And I think it's almost impossible for him to accurately depict how long it will take for him to do something like this, because not only has he never done something like this, I don't think I've known a lot of people that have taken on a project as big as Box Peak. And so I'm excited for him to start to get some good vibes back, like we did at our concert last year when we premiered the first episode. And I'm excited to see those other episodes. I don't get any sneak previews. I don't get any early screenings. I see them when you see them. Irunian, with this fall being as clearly stacked as it is, I know you're already going to be strapped for time, but I was wondering whether there are any plans to cover Destiny 2 Forsaken. Obviously coming out the same day as Dragon Quest XI and 3 days before Spider-Man makes it a tough sell. And let me be clear, I love Dragon Quest and don't want anything to take away from it getting all the attention it deserves. But as a fan of the Destiny franchise, I'm curious how the major changes Bungie is promising will affect the game's reaction among the allies who played it last year when it was new. Our main Destiny resource is Michael Huber. Michael Huber also has been waiting for Dragon Quest XI his entire life, so I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I can't make promises there. Maybe Bloodworth can update us on maybe conversations that happened in front of me that I did not listen to, or maybe updates that we missed. I know we figured out the schedule for August, and I think we stepped into... I know the dates have been updated on the Google Doc for September, but I don't know. Huber is on the fence about it. There we go. I thought that's where we rested. So yeah, we shall see. No promises. Maybe something that we can take care of in a stream. I know Ian has played that in the past. I know Brad has showed up and played a little Destiny with Huber in the past, but with games like that, it's hard to make promises. Same with World of Warcraft, where it's just like, that's going to take a lot of time. I don't know if that's something we can necessarily commit to 100% before we start working on it. Sven Van Latham, from what I understand, you'll reveal the new goals at Easy Livin'. This is correct. I think it's great, but can you please upload a video about it on YouTube as well? We will. If you want to attract new patrons, you have to reach some of those 175k subscribers and not just Twitch people. This is true. But again, we got to be careful on YouTube of directing people to other places. WoW is happening in some form, correct. So yeah, we will either stream WoW or possibly put in enough work to actually review that puppy. Morgan Mohala, I just watched the last 2 Cup of Joneses back-to-back and noticed that the redundant questions were pretty distracting. I understand the audience rotates and some overlap is inevitable, but is there any way you could structure the conversation a little more? You've already done a good job with separating business and personal questions, getting boundaries with question content, and enforcing the 1 question per week rule. I would suggest a completely unofficial segment implemented at your discretion called I Am Putting It to Rest. In this segment, you could address the audience's reoccurring interest in a topic, state, leave your questions for me to address next week so I can put this to rest. After you discuss it the following week, add it to the short list of retired topics and simply reference the discussion if it comes up again. Perhaps the community could keep track of what topics go with what episodes for future reference. I think this would alleviate the frustration of frequently repeating yourself and construct a better dialogue between yourself and the audience. We'll get to that in the editorial, but thank you for those tips. Alex AI, I think you recently brought up that some of the allies were waiting outside during the final section of Cup of Jones. Why not invite the ally in for a bit? I'm just curious what a Cup of Jones with a dash of insert ally name would be like. Yes, the door is open today, so Ben Moore, I told him to come by at noon because I said we will be recording the spoiler mode immediately after Cup of Jones, and so hopefully if Ben gets here, then we will do that post-haste. But I think one of the reasons is I just didn't think about it at the time. But another reason is if I bring them in and then they're like, hey, everybody, and then we have a conversation, then that just stretches out the episode of Cup of Jones where the reason that they're here, case in point, last week, they were here to shoot Tabletop. And so it's better if I wrap up Cup of Jones, we get them in here, start Tabletop, as opposed to extending the Cup of Jones with just some lively banter from the allies. But one thing, Huber's been doing this recently where he had all of the allies on the show. One thing that I've debated doing in the future is having ally-specific episodes of Cup of Jones, having the editorial be an ally that comes by later on, and then we can sit down and chat about stuff. Daniel Rosa, quick question about the game Just Shapes and Beats. I can't find any coverage of this game by the allies. We have not covered that game as far as I know. I'm not even sure I've heard about the game mentioned at any point. Have I missed it or did it just slide under the radar? Please put your feelers out there. Make sure the allies know this game exists. It's beautiful. Just Shapes and Beats. Not much to say about that, Daniel, other than I don't believe we have covered that, and I will put it on our radar. There you go, allies. Just Shapes and Beats. Beats. Hank Grodendijk, I value EZA's reviews dearly in regards to expensive purchases decisions I have to make, like full-priced games. From a consumer standpoint, have you ever considered expanding your scope for reviews to include big game expansions like WoW Battle for Azeroth, hardware revisions, like the PS4 Pro, or gaming peripherals and accessories like Toys to Life and Nintendo Labo kits, in order to inform consumers the same way you do with games? We have definitely considered doing expansions. Every now and then we do an expansion. We've definitely considered it'd be fun to review the Labo kits or Toys to Life stuff. Hardware revisions, I don't know about us reviewing consoles. No one's been into it when I've brought it up, said Bloodworth about Just Shapes and Beats. So there you go. Unfortunately, no one's into it. But we will take your interest into account. If that game ever comes up again, I will be like, at least one commenter on Cup of Jones said that was a game that they would like to see us cover. I don't see us getting into gaming peripherals, accessories, or hardware revisions, Hank, because there are so many games we don't have time to review. There's so many games that we have to put off. One of the things that playing over 100 hours of Octopath Traveler made me do that I really enjoy is having so much more respect for Ben Moore, because Ben handles such massive games. He reviews games that take so many hours to complete that a lot of times he'll be 20 hours into a game and we'll have to put it on the shelf because something else will come out or we'll get something early, and he'll realize, here's this game that I'm reviewing that'll be late, meaning the game has already come out and our review will be late, versus here's this game that I just got that I'm now going to be able to do and possibly meet embargo or post a review shortly after, and I gotta focus on this new project and put this other thing on the shelf, maybe never review this game, maybe just stream it or talk about it later. And so that can be frustrating. And so I think before we get into hardware revisions or gaming peripherals and accessories, I think something like hardware revisions might be fun as its own show, or maybe not necessarily review, but maybe kind of like a special unboxing or a special sit-down conversation analysis video. But considering how many games we don't review, considering there's so many projects per year, Overcooked I won't be reviewing. I would have loved to do that, but there's just too much going on right now. Like the last 5 Lego games I didn't get time to review, and I would have loved to do that. And so I would, so instead of branching out what we review, I would love to just review more stuff. I would love for people not only to count on Easy Allies as a resource for producing high quality reviews, but producing a lot of reviews so that you could come to us for that game that you heard that you were excited about, come to Easy Allies and count on a review for that game being available. It is, okay, here we go. Here's a rough list of where a lot of our traffic comes from on YouTube. Still somewhat incomplete, but it gives an idea. Or hang on a sec, it's bigger than anticipated, says Daniel Bloodworth. He's still looking for that list of all the international audiences. I probably won't have time to read all of that. But if you are here live, 2 more business questions. DRD 7 of 14. I noticed that many YouTube channels I follow all initially, this is a Bloodworth question, all initially load as the following: youtube.com/channel/random characters. But once you click any of the main page tabs, they change to youtube.com/user/specific name. But EZA doesn't do that. Any particular reason why? It may be a blood question, but it may make finding the YouTube page by sharing the URL, etc., easier to use. I don't know. I clicked. He provided a link of Kind of Funny versus kind of the main Kind of Funny channel, as opposed to our channel, and I clicked on them and they operated the same. Meaning, I clicked on them and then they went I went to. It said youtube.com/easyallies, and then I went to Kind of Funny and it said youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, and then I clicked on a video and it said youtube.com/ the name of the video, and it did the same on Easy Allies. So I don't know. I don't know if that's how your account is set up. I don't know if that's a YouTube Premium versus a standard subscription kind of thing. Jiff52 says no need to put the user part on there. I do not know. Again, Bloodworth might be able to chime in on this, or maybe we can do tests or something, but I clicked on both links that you provided on patreon.com/easyallies in the latest Cup of Jones post, and they both, for me, acted the same way. So I don't know why that works. There are so many things about YouTube that are a mystery to me. I could do a whole separate show called Cup of YouTube. We're just talking about those things. youtube.com/easyallies in that order, and Blood says yes. So there we go. Oh, to clarify. Oh, no, not the video, but the tabs. Oh, the tabs. Okay. I don't know. I guarantee you, DRD, whatever question however you could phrase that question, I do not have the answer for you. But that could potentially be something worth looking into. Finally, Steve S., who's the biggest Xbox Microsoft fan of the group? Technically a business question, but I put it at the end. Who's the biggest Xbox Microsoft fan of the group? Well, at the risk of labeling somebody as an Xbox fanboy, which I don't want to do, because we are all into the stuff that we're into, I can tell you the 360 was my console of choice last gen. A hardcore 360 fan. Really only played PS3 when something was exclusive. Like I played Journey on PS3, played the Uncharted remaster when that came out on PS3. Finally played a bit of Uncharted 2, which I hadn't played before. Blood doesn't know about the user thing, but yeah, youtube.com/easyallies is simpler anyways. But I do know that whenever you say who is the biggest blank fan of the group, it's usually Huber. Huber usually tends to give things a shot when nobody else does. But I know plenty of us. Brad is definitely not the biggest Xbox fan. I don't believe Brad owns an Xbox One. But I know. I don't know if Ian does. I know Ian is a Microsoft fan because Ian played a bunch of Sea of Thieves and really liked it. I don't know how many of us will be playing Crackdown 3 whenever the heck that game comes out. But I was definitely probably the biggest Microsoft fan from last gen. I really dug it. And I liked this stream. So much buffering. Sorry. We're moving on to feedback personal. I like to use this mouse for this computer, which doesn't work. And we don't have a lot of personal questions, so this should be hopefully a quick episode of Cup of Jones. Let's get under 2 hours. What do you say? Let me do a quick chug of the smoothie. All right. Sean Mahoney. Feedback, personal. Sean Mahoney. I'm performing a one-man show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year, doing 24 shows in 26 days. I was wondering if you had any tips for how to keep my voice and my body okay. I'm going to be doing yoga after the show and also drinking honey, lemon, and hot water. But if there's any other tip I should know, it'd be great to hear from the Easy Allies voice maestro himself. You're so kind. Thank you. Doing yoga after the show? Awesome. I wonder, are you doing like joint yoga? Is it going to be like yoga with everybody? Are like all the cast members gonna all gather and do like a post-show yoga, in which case that rules? Or are you just gonna have your little yoga regimen? You're gonna maybe follow like a YouTube account or something like that and do some yoga back in your apartment or your friend's house, wherever you're staying, I wonder. But that's awesome. First of all, congrats. That's really cool that you're doing that. I've always wanted to be. I've never done a festival like that. I've done a lot. I've done shows outside in an amphitheater. I've been a part of like festival competitions, but I've never done something like that, a play festival, and have to absorb all of that content and memorize like 8 parts at the same time. Sean, the big thing, it sounds like you're way ahead of me. It sounds like you got a good regimen set up, so I'm not worried. Just honey, lemon, and hot water. Hot water's fine, just regular water. Just be sure you always have water. You're always drinking water backstage. Just either buy like a ton of gigantic bottles or just buy yourself a big cup and then just keep that baby full and just keep chugging water all the time. Keep yourself hydrated. I know this is kind of gross for everybody, but make sure that pee is clear. You want no yellow pee. You want the crystal clear Pepsi pee. And that's how you know that you are really hydrated. That's what I used when I used to do cross country and ran track and field in high school. Our coach would always be like, "I want that pee clear." And we're like, "Okay, we'll drink some water." So water definitely helps, but one thing that you didn't write on here that a lot of people take for granted when it comes to losing your voice, when it comes to straining yourself, when you have to do kind of an endurance test, even if it is just the theater, and that is sleep. And that's easily, I imagine when you're in a festival environment like that and when you're around friends, especially when you're doing shows at night, it is so easy to stay up. It's so easy to have an inconsistent sleeping schedule. And so that might be impossible for you to achieve with a crazy event like that. But if you can, get as much sleep as you possibly can, because that'll help you too. Because if you're tired, you're tired, and the voice, as you know, is a muscle like everything else, and so being sleepy just kind of drags everything down, and will drag your voice down as well over time. I want that pee clear. Okay, sorry. People be talking. Kola Aina. If this is a frequent question, please feel free to skip it. How did you learn to do voiceover work? Great follow-up question to that first question. A lot of different ways, Kola. I used to do a lot of musical theater, and so I would get up on stage and I would sing for a large audience, and sometimes I was mic'd and sometimes I was not, and I just had to scream to everyone in the theater and make sure they could hear me. And so that's how I learned where the diaphragm is and how to breathe correctly and how to breathe, not having your chest go up, but have push that air down, and speak from the diaphragm, speak loud to enunciate bada gada. I was doing that the other day because Amanda was warming up while she was driving. Amanda likes to warm up when she drives, and so she'll like put on a tape and do her vocal warm-ups, and I'll be in the passenger seat and I'll do them with her. But I remembered bada gada. Bada gada is fun because bata gata, because ba is at the front, ta is in the top of the palate, and ga is way in the back. So you're gonna ga, ta, ba. So it's fun to throw the sound back and forth, bada gada, in your mouth, and all of those different things in your instrument, if you will, that you constrict and move around to produce those different sounds. It's fascinating to explore that stuff, not because everybody needs to do vocal work, but it's just fun to explore how that happens. How it's fun to like look at your vocal nodes, to actually like look at the throat and see like how that happens, how voices. That's very dirty. Apologies, but how vibrations happen. and how they produce sound and produce voices. Also helps if you lose your voice and you understand why that happened. So I used to do a lot of musical theater stuff, and then when we started Game Trailers, I started doing voiceover because I had the most speaking experience, public speaking, singing, stage stuff, recording stuff on video, and I offered myself to be the voiceover narrator of the stuff that we produced. At the time, we also had a bunch of other guest people coming in and voicing stuff. It was just kind of an endurance test over time where they all just kind of got tired of doing it, and so I then got the job full-time, and then over time got better at the narrating aspect of it. So there are two skills since the inception of Game Trailers and Easy Allies that I've gotten better at. One is recording voiceover for reviews. I've gotten better at cadence and tone and pacing and choosing what to put emphasis on and what not to. And this kind of speaking in front of this microphone, specifically to that camera, something that I got better at. I remember doing Trailer Academy back at Game Trailers, which is a show that I would do talking about trailer construction, playing the game, revisiting the trailer, talking about the connections between the two. And I had to teach myself how to speak into a camera and how to get better at that. Maybe I can do an instructional video down the road and express all of the things that I learned in that time. But so yeah, practice makes perfect. If you go back and listen to the early reviews at Game Trailers, from a voiceover perspective, they are not good, or rather are not as good as the ones that I do now, in my humble opinion. So yeah, that's just experience over time. That is how I learned to do voiceover work. And since I hooked up with Amanda, I have met all sorts of other voiceover people in the industry, and so it's been fun to kind of learn from them, if not little fun tricks that they do, but just see their work and be like, hey, that's really good, and hear their voice and hear the work that they do and get inspired from that. Would You Kindly says, given how other circumstances currently suck in the world, we celebrate the golden age of gaming in our decade. The sheer output of new and revised IP, no matter if AAA or indie, is overwhelming at times. However, I feel like there is still a lack of proper co-op games. I have a good friend who lives in a different country, and we stay in touch by playing co-op. We are both not a fan of competitive multiplayer and enjoy story games. A Way Out was definitely a surprise for us. However, most other options are either based on a simple formula, shooter campaign, or co-op multiplayer mechanics, and are very complicated and annoying. Souls games, Monster Hunter. Yes, there is the occasional platformer and indie game, but overall I feel that there is room for more variety and presence in bigger titles. Beyond Good and Evil 2 gives me a co-op vibe, and I would die of excitement. He says for, but I'm guessing it's of. If Cyberpunk would be playable in co-op, probably very unlikely, but that would be a gaming milestone, of course. What is your take on better, more co-op games? Ever discussed this with the other allies? You know that Michael Huber wants more co-op games. You know Michael Huber and Brad Ellis would definitely dig more co-op games. Yeah, the beat 'em up genre, I think, would do well. Obviously has done well in the past with co-op. And I agree with you that the co-op mostly exists in the indie scene. You mostly just get shooter variants, or you get Fortnite is a fun co-op game to play. If you have not checked that out yet, it is fun to just find a buddy and to squad up. The more people you add into your team in Fortnite, the more chaotic it can tend to be, and so just having two people back to back, looking out for each other in Fortnite is really fun if you haven't given that a chance already. I know you seem to be kind of averse to shooters, or you don't think that they're as inspiring as other offerings. I mean, you can feel the room, you could feel the industry when A Way Out got announced, that, wow, this is different. It is so rare that not only do you get a game that is co-op, period, but a game that uses that as the focus, a game that absolutely demands it, a game that you cannot play by yourself, that you have to play with another person, a game like that the camera is always split, a game that you could play, you have to play couch co-op, I don't think you can play A Way Out online, correct me if I'm wrong, but a game that... Oh no, I think you can, because the person that is playing with you doesn't have to own the game. So I believe you can play that online. But that is another fascinating development from that game, that you only required one purchased copy of the game to play that game, and so there was just a lot about that game that was unusual. Hopefully that inspires other people not only to make it, because I don't think that there is a lack of creative ideas in this industry towards co-op, but I think it's the kind of thing that was much more prevalent before online really hit its stride in the Xbox PS3 era. Like, yeah, you could hook up your PS2 online, or yeah, you could play Halo 2 online on the Xbox, but it was really until the 360 PS3 era that online multiplayer multiplayer on consoles. It was around forever on PCs, but on consoles specifically really exploded. And so I think the desire for co-op kind of took a back seat, maybe in that generation. Maybe we're seeing a resurgence of that in this generation, because you have a lot of, not only just you and your friends wanting to play games. Lego games are also really fun. If you've never played any of the Lego games, I recommend picking up Lego Superheroes, Lego Marvel Superheroes, or Lego Lord of the Rings are my two favorite Lego games. Those have really fun co-op. Disney Infinity, wink wink nudge nudge, has really fun co-op. And I said beat 'em ups earlier. The heck is that? Okay. But I imagine also now there's a lot of parents playing their games with their children. So parents bringing kids in, and so I don't want to just watch you play this game. I want to be a part of this with you. And so I think we're seeing that Dreams, I imagine, will have all sorts of really fun co-op opportunities if you're interested in getting that game whenever the heck that comes out. You can play A Way Out online, but if you do, Joseph Ferris will find you, shake you, and say, "What are you doing? You have to play this on a couch with a friend." That is hilarious. Says Daniel Bloodworth. That's funny. But yeah, and always, as hopefully we've demonstrated here at Easy Allies, all you got to do is split that controller, and any game becomes co-op if you're down for a little jolly cooperation. Alexandra Nilsson Tofsa just came home from the ESA, European Speedrunners Assembly, and had such a blast, raising roughly 1 month of Easy A patronage for charity. Any speedrunning hype amongst the allies? I rarely hear you speak about it. Michael Huber, I believe, talks about speedrunning more than anybody else. Speedrunning comes up whenever we talk about, we searched a lot of speedruns when we were picking games for Easy Livin', because when we look at something that we're considering doing for full playthrough, we obviously want to have a reference of how long it typically takes to play, because, and we try to factor in, you know, we look at, like, what are the average playthroughs of these games if you check them out on YouTube, and then kind of trying to find the median there, and then use that as the qualifier for how long it will potentially take a game to play. And then, of course, have a game in waiting that we'll switch to if we finish that game earlier than we scheduled for. But we joke about it every now and then. I know there's a group stream a couple weeks back where we talked about speed runs. I can't remember what it was. We were trying. I think it was Resident Evil 2. Like, we were trying to convince Huber to join the speedrunning community for Resident Evil 2, or it was somebody. Somebody had a speed run that they did, and we were like, "We want you to commit to that. We want to support that at Easy Allies. Maybe we'll make that one of our goals. That if we hit 70K, then Michael Huber will officially join." No, that is not an announcement I am making, or that we will likely ever make. But yeah, I think the reason that you don't hear about speedruns, at least for me, it's something that I respect tremendously. For me, I live my gaming life just bouncing from one game to another as quickly as possible. I want to have the largest frame of reference as I possibly can on this growing industry. I want to try as many games as I can. Even if I don't get a chance to play a game, I want to watch streams of it. I want to read articles about it. I want to talk to other people about it. I want them to tell me everything about their experiences. I want to know as much about this industry as I can. I want to focus on things like esports and fighting games, and a lot of multiplayer focused games, like we were saying, Destiny, a lot of Monster Hunter World, Warframe, Star Citizen, EVE Online, like a lot of games that are just require a massive online time investment, and that I don't necessarily have time to invest in. And so for that reason, what am I talking about? We're talking about speedrunning. For that reason, I love following the speedrunning community, but it is not something I ever see myself getting involved in, because that's so difficult, and I would have to put so many things on hold just to focus on one thing. But I know you're not necessarily talking about us speedrunning things, but talking about other speedrunning things. We've experimented a little bit more. Case in point, we just followed EVO with live coverage that we hadn't done before. We talk about EVO after the fact, but I believe this is the first time that we streamed live reactions to EVO here from the garage. And so that is something we will hopefully be doing for the future, forevers, because it's really great to experience a lot of these fun events, these fun live events that showcase some of the greatest talent that exists on this planet in the gaming industry, with all of you, with our wonderful community on Twitch. And I could see that potentially something we do in the future with speedruns, because they are really, really exciting to watch with games done quick and with other, like you said, with other events that happen around the world. I know we host games done quick, but it might be fun to do a reaction for specific games when we know they're coming up. So yeah, maybe stay tuned. Maybe that's something we could shine more of a light on in the future. Freedom. He goes mad for those ads. He's got a Trailer Jones? Is that a dirty joke, Brandon? He's speaking, Freedom is speaking to the intro of Trailer Jones, where I have a jingle where my lovely wife and two of her friends sing, he goes mad for those ads. He's got a Trailer Jones. Having a Jones for something, people might say, that might be somehow potentially construed in a sexual context. Sexual contest is a completely different thing. But in this context, it just means I like trailers. If you're jonesing for something, you could be jonesing for anything. I could be jonesing for, the true ending of Octopath Traveler right now. I could be jonesing for Spider-Man to get wind up in my mailbox today. I could be jonesing for us for the new studio. It just means a desire for something. So, yeah. I talk about sex every now and then. You heard me. I said it, but not in the context of trailers. I don't want to have sex with trailers. I just like to watch them. That's terrible. I thought the I just like to watch them part would be okay, but that was unsavory as well. I apologize to everybody. Let's clean things up. Let's take a break. Let's take a smoothie sip, and let's just reset everything. People are like, wow, not only is the frame rate suffering on Trailer Jones, or on Cup of Jones here, but it's getting dirty, and I feel uncomfortable, and I don't know why. Brian Paddock. Who do you want to come to Marvel Strike Force? Is there an Easy Allies Alliance on there I can join? There is. You can tweet at Mr. Michael Huber. He is the leader of that guild. I have not played Marvel Strike Force in a while, I gotta be honest. The Octopath effect. But he did start an Easy Alliance guild. I joined that. Had to boot somebody from it to insert me into the guild, and here I am not playing it that much, so what a horrible guild member I am. But yeah, reach out to Michael Huber. Who do I want to come to Marvel Strike Force? Cyclops, every time. Cyclops. Every time. There's a Marvel game that you're playing, Cyclops is not in it, and he should be. Dante's Igloo, after hearing you talk about Galaxy of Heroes on numerous occasions, I decided to give it a try, and now I am obsessed. What about this game, in your opinion, separates it from other mobile offerings? I've talked about Galaxy of Heroes in the past, but twist my arm, I will talk about Galaxy of Heroes again. Interesting that these questions did come back to back. I did not put these together. Galaxy of Heroes is the Star Wars variant of Marvel Strike Force. One of the things that I've enjoyed, how about this? I won't talk about many reasons. If you go to Easy Allies Plays, you can find an episode of Brandon Go, which is a streaming series I used to do that I'll hopefully get back to one day, where I played mobile games. But I played Galaxy of Heroes a little bit, and I talk about why I like it. Keep in mind, a lot in the game has changed since I did that stream. But if you are very curious about my feedback, youtube.com, Easy Allies Plays, search for Galaxy of Heroes. But one thing that I appreciate about it now is I know I should be watching JoJo, and I will get to JoJo in a second, but I have been watching The Clone Wars, and that's a show that I've seen episodes of every now and then, but I never really got into at the time because I was so salty on those prequels. And it's neat to go back now and be like, wow, this is a lot better than the prequels, because the prequels are not great, as many of you know and have come to accept. And it's interesting following this show that's about war, that's about this, that's elongated war. And obviously every time like Anakin and Obi-Wan are put in danger, you're like, no, Anakin, I hope Anakin doesn't die. But, and it's interesting that like the clones always die. In every episode, there's always one clone that like, will like fall off a cliff, or like some monster will grab them and eat them, or there'll be an explosion and you'll see a pile of clones. And it's like, no, the clones. But one thing that's really fun about Galaxy of Heroes is that it, as a Star Wars fan, even though I haven't seen Solo yet, I do consider myself a Star Wars fan. Pointing to my shirt. It's fun to kind of like plant the names of these characters in my brain. And so there's a lot of characters. Bistan is a classic example. Bistan or Bistan is a character that's in Rogue One that I would not know his name at all if I had not played Galaxy of Heroes. And Galaxy of Heroes inserted him into the game before Rogue One, so when I was watching Rogue One, they had a shot of him like sticking out the window of a ship flying by and wasting dudes, and I was like, yeah, Bistan! Like, that's my guy. I'm, leveling him up right now in Galaxy of Heroes. And so it's really fun having Luminari Unduli and Barriss Offee be my two healers, my two most strongest parties in Galaxy of Heroes. Barriss Offee is my most, what I believe is the best healer in Galaxy of Heroes, and she's the healer of my main party. And then it's cool to finally get to that episode of Clone Wars. And I'm like, oh, Luminary Unduli and Barriss Offee. I didn't know Barriss Offee was Luminary Unduli's Padawan. I thought they were both Jedi Masters, but Barriss Offee is a Padawan specifically to Luminary Unduli, and it's like, cool. So it's neat to like either learn about something before via Galaxy of Heroes and then see it come to life in animated or live action films or shows from Star Wars, or vice versa. So that's one of the reasons that I think separates it from other mobile offerings is, and well, I guess Marvel does that too. It's just kind of creating awareness of all of these characters. Robert I. How do you think Bruce Wayne should be portrayed? Like a spoiled, selfish, arrogant doofus, a direction Batman Begins went? Or as a, in a scene, or as a charitable, competent, upstanding citizen of Gotham, like the animated series steered? I hope, hopefully you have your own take on how Bruce Wayne should be portrayed, should be portraying himself to the rest of the world. I have my own take on everything related to Batman. I have my own personal way that I think all the stuff in Batman should shake down. I believe every Batman fan does. In their heart of hearts. And so, and because of that, apologies, Robert, but I don't think there's like an easy answer to this question. I think there are multiple Bruce Waynes. I see the early Bruce Wayne, early 20s, being somewhat of a recluse. I think he comes back to Gotham and then kind of holds up in the mansion and doesn't really do a lot. Maybe it takes a while to reinsert himself back into Wayne Enterprises. Maybe kind of hands that off to people and doesn't really have an interest. I think in the way I imagine Bruce Wayne right away, and this is something that I've never really seen portrayed, and I would love to see it portrayed in something. In the comics, when I heard Gotham was being announced, I'm like, oh, is he gonna be? No, they're not doing that story. Oh well. But I would love to have Bruce come back from his training and be a very difficult person to be around. Have him be so focused on creating Batman and building the cave and adapting his technology and getting better at fighting and understanding the criminal underworld and reintroducing himself to all of the nasty stuff that's going on in Gotham, and like not being nice to Alfred, not being nice to Gordon, not being nice to Catwoman, not being nice to really anybody. And they're not really being a lot of villains around. It's kind of just like Batman versus the mob at first. And Bruce is just kind of a tough egg to crack, and it takes a while for this relationship to develop, to blossom between him and Alfred. I think that to me adds more value to their relationship if Bruce is kind of a pain in the ass at the beginning, because it takes a while for them to understand, for Alfred to understand really how broken Bruce is, really how much his parents' death affected him, much more than he ever possibly could have imagined. You know, like you imagine Alfred's perspective of just like, okay, this guy's got the money, he's touring the world, I get it. And then he comes back and it's like, whoa, what have you been doing, Bruce? And just really kind of understanding like who Bruce is now, and can Alfred really be friends with this person or connect with him, or would Alfred's advice really be worth anything to Bruce at this point? And, you know, vice versa. You know, why is Bruce gonna listen to the guy who cleans his house? You know, it's like, why? Like, yeah, you changed my diapers and you gave me oatmeal when I was a kid, but like, I don't care about you. Why would I care about you? You're the help. You know what I mean? Like, and I imagine I could just see Bruce having that opinion because he's so focused on what he wants to do to get revenge for his parents and to hopefully save the city. And so I imagine this is a big process, and that's kind of my Bruce when he first starts out. Then Bruce, I imagine, evolves into kind of like you were saying, like to really put a huge gap in between people's perception of what Bruce Wayne is like and who Batman could potentially be, because it doesn't take a genius to figure out, okay, he's a recluse, he's buff, he's got a lot of money, I've seen scars on him sometimes, you know, there's all sorts of things. Cold Bruce in the Batman Jones verse. Yeah, there are some harsh truths in my Batman universe, in my own personal Batman universe. Some harsh stuff goes on there. But that's what I love about the Batman. It's a harsh story. And then once you get into Golden Age, once Robin comes into the picture, once Batgirl comes into the picture, once he really starts working a lot more with the police department, once the average cop on the street like salutes Batman as he drives by, you know, once the city really starts to get used to him and sees him as a savior and not just sees him as you know, a threat or just a vigilante or someone to be feared, once the citizens don't fear Batman anymore, then I could see Batman kind of taking taking a step back again, and also once once like Nightwing comes in, and once like other people start to take the burden off of Batman's shoulders for the cause of saving Gotham, I could see Batman just kind of lightening up a bit, maybe spending more time with Wayne Enterprises, maybe exploring more ways that Wayne Enterprises could do the job of Batman better than Batman could, and kind of making the rounds and going to events and going to charities and being more of like that the Kevin Conroy charming chiseled jaw Bruce Wayne that we're all so familiar with now, kind of the Bruce Wayne that he's evolved into. So there's many, which is why a lot of people say like, who's your favorite Bruce Wayne? And like, it's kind of all over the place. Like, I think probably one of my favorite Bruce Wayne moments in any of the live action films is when Christian Bale does push-ups. When he gets up in the morning and he's all bruised and he just like falls straight to the floor and starts doing push-ups, and it's like, yes, it's like they had the moment in the '89 version where Michael Keaton's hanging from the thing, which is like, I guess he's working out there, I don't know, but like you just didn't see like Michael Keaton doing reps, and like I just imagine Bruce is, that's why I love Ben Affleck with the tires in Batman versus Superman. You just see him working out, and it's like, that's a tough workout that he does, lots of lifting. So, I love the focus on physicality. Let's talk about Batman for 5 more hours. No, let's move on. Daniel Askew, you get to take a power set of a character from the Marvel Universe and are transported into the DC Universe. What character's powers would you take? What do you do in that universe now that you have powers? Do you try to join the Bat family? Do you go to Metropolis? Or you do become a villain? Does the JLA try to hire you? What do you do? I can't say that the Justice League of America tries to hire me because that's on them. But I want to be boring and say Cyclops. Obviously, the answer is always Cyclops. Cyclops is fun within the context of X-Men. I would love to be Cyclops as an X-Men, but I don't know if I necessarily want to take his powers and then add them to the Marvel Universe, the DC Universe. It'd be fun to be Spider-Man, of course. I mean, it'd be fun. There's really nobody like Spider-Man in the DC Universe, so it'd be fun to be Spider-Man, go to Gotham, and then just harass Batman. Riley Donahoe, how did you and Amanda meet? I've mentioned this before. Again, it's one of those repetitive questions, which we will get to an editorial about very soon. But I'll give you the quick version. I first saw Amanda because she was in a show that I went to go see because she was in a theater company with my brother, and I went to go see the show, and I was like, oh, that's a fun show, that girl's cute. And then I went to my brother's birthday party, and I was hanging out with friends and was not paying attention to Amanda, and Amanda had a friend named Jenny who was dating my brother, and my brother and Jenny and Amanda were all in the same theater company as well, and Amanda said to Jenny, hey, that guy's cute, pointing at me, and Jenny said, that's Brandon's brother. And she said, tell Chris that I wouldn't mind getting Brandon's number so I could call him, maybe we could date sometime. And then Jenny told my brother, hey, Chris, you should give Brandon's number to Amanda because Amanda wants to meet your brother. And he said, okay. And then my brother didn't. And my brother let me know like 4 months later, hey, there was this girl that was interested in you. Are you still dating Erin, the girl that you were dating before? I was not. I was seeing somebody at the time, but it wasn't a super serious relationship. We were just kind of goofing around, and we were not very committed. And then I found out about Amanda, and then Amanda and I went on a date. We went to go see Chamber of Secrets. I picked her up, and we drove onto the 101, and we were going on the 101 South toward the restaurant in the movie theater where we were going to see Chamber of Secrets. And we were talking about puppets within 5 minutes, and I thought, this is going to work out. And that's how we met. Alex Pisa, what do you think of Metal Batman and also the one where he takes steroids? I'm never a fan of Tank Batman. I never like I do love the story with Bane where he realizes he's not strong enough. I like that fear present in Batman. I'm never a fan of when he like shows up in big like robo suits and does stuff. That's like to me it's a necessity sometimes that you have these characters that are just made of metal, or that you have like Metallo and these characters. I think they're like Terminator characters. I think they're interesting, but whenever he like roids out, the story gets a little less interesting to me. But I mean, you have Batman around for so many years that I'm totally fine with story arcs like this because I think it's interesting to explore stuff like that. Specifically, Batman taking the route of letting the technology do the job for him. I think that's an interesting potential sign of weakness with Batman, and sometimes he's kind of got to throw his hands up and just bring a device and let the device do the job. I think that's interesting because sometimes he gets put in that position, and we can potentially wrap wrap up this Cup of Jones before noon, and I'm very excited about that. So let us move on to our Cup of Jones editorial. And I'll take another quick sip of this smoothie here. Hello, everyone. I am Brandon Jones. I'm going to read a question from Beaten Down Brian, which also addresses this issue that we were talking about of just too many questions. Too many questions. Well, obviously, this week's Cup of Jones was bloated due to backlog of personal questions. The volume of questions you're receiving, as well as the overall length of the show, seems to be becoming more of an issue for you as the Patreon continues to grow. I wanted to offer up a few possible solutions that maybe ease the problem. Repeated questions. This one is the hardest in my opinion, as I'm not sure that there's any great solution. There will always be someone who is new, or someone who has just missed an episode where that topic was covered. While it's not ideal, as it's more work for you, but in the absence of a Cup of Jones FAQ, then maybe responding in the comments is the best solution for now at least. I will do that, and I have done that in some cases. Duplicate questions. While the questions about Brandon Plays Pokemon were approached from different angles, perhaps they should have been grouped together, just so you're not covering the same topic multiple times in the same show. Introduce a new soft rule regarding questions. Up until now, Cup of Jones has been a place that you've been guaranteed to answer your question, which is great. But I feel like in some cases, this has led to people asking questions maybe more because they can, rather than because it being a burning issue for them. I also feel it leads to people sometimes asking questions about other ally shows, etc., which would be better directed at said ally. What I want to suggest is a new soft rule of one question per patron every 2 episodes. I say soft rule because when you're staring at a sea of usernames, it may not always be easy to remember if that person asked something the week before or not, but in general, anytime you've asked the community to ease back on questions for certain episodes, they've responded in kind. I realize this would probably drastically reduce the number of questions per week, but maybe now is the time to do it, before reaching the point where doing so would leave you with an hour and a half long show. It's worth pointing out that there were fewer questions this episode of Cup of Jones than previous episodes, than the last couple episodes. So I do see a trend of there being less questions than before. We've definitely crossed the 100 comment mark on previous episodes of Cup of Jones. I think it was in like the high 50s. Also, apologies, I grabbed a lot of these questions earlier last night. I tend to grab them later because some people jump in like right before the show and ask questions if I missed them. That's why. Drop your question in next week. But this is an issue. Or this is a potential issue. There are a lot of things to address. I will address a couple things before I get into the nitty-gritty of potential ways that we can solve this. One, it's not a big deal. You know, I know it sounds like it's more work for me. It's not a ton of more work. I get so swept up in what I am doing at Easy Allies, in my own projects, in my own reviews, in a lot of things that are coming up that we can't talk about yet because we have not announced them, in things that I'm not sure how they're going to work out. I'm super nervous about Easy Living, just all sorts of things. Not because anything seems like it's going to go wrong, but because my imagination, I can just imagine all sorts of things that can go wrong. And so I'm always just I always have tunnel vision. Bloodworth knows this. He can attribute to it. I will vanish. I will just be focusing on one thing that I'm working on, and Bloodworth is like, answer my emails. And so I'm like, so I really like having this avenue of this, having this stream of questions and comments from our community. I love comments on Cup of Jones that frame, got jury duty coming up. I love people that say this is not, that address this is not something that we need to be addressed on Cup of Jones. You don't need to bring this up. I'm just letting you know, and maybe you can reply here, or maybe you can just, take this little grain of knowledge and file it. But I love having these responses. I love the process of Cup of Jones. Like, I'm not doing Cup of Jones out of obligation. I don't wake up every Tuesday going, here we go again. Like, I love this. I do very little prep as far as the responses that I give you here live. A lot of this stuff is just off the top of my head. I do read these questions beforehand, and so if there's something that I feel is not appropriate, or if there's something that I think is repetitive or is too long, I'll condense that. I kept beating down Brian's comment in its entirety because I'm doing the editorial on it. But so for me, you start this off by saying becoming more of an issue for you. It's not an issue for me. It's not something where I'm getting exhausted. And in the past, if I feel that it is getting to be too much, I have made changes. Sometimes we won't get into personal questions because I don't have time because we're working on something else. Sometimes I won't even do an episode. A couple weeks back, I had to delay the episode because I just wasn't ready. Cup of Jones does have room to be modulated, does have room for growth, and can evolve because because it is just a $1 tier. For just $1 a month, you gain access to watching the show and leaving questions. So I think just watching the show, to me, is worth the value of $1 of getting an update exclusively for all of the things that we're doing here on Easy Allies. And then on top of that, getting to answer a question, but that doesn't always guarantee that I'm going to have time to answer it that week or that I'm even going to get to it at all, because it might be a question that has already been addressed. And so I think while as you were saying, the shows might be becoming bloated. I'm not worried about that because, again, I don't. Cup of Jones is not something where I sweat the viewership of. It's not something where I'm like, we got to get the numbers. This has got to be the best show that we produce. The show is really just, like we've said many times, an investors meeting. This is just the chat and myself and all these questions, sitting down, talking things out, having a jolly time on a Tuesday morning, which is our biggest production day of the week here at Easy Allies, typically. So it's nice to kick things off with a little reminder of what are the things that are affecting our community. And whether we get to those questions or not, I like to receive them. And so, whereas I always, like you were saying, sometimes I'll tell people, hey, ease up on the personal questions this week, or hey, ease up on questions in general because I'm gonna have to do 2 episodes at once, or hey, we get this question a lot, maybe don't ask that in the future. Ever since Cup of Jones began, I have started to chip away at questions that I take or things that I'm necessarily not going to address because that question has already been asked. A lot of times people will say, as evidenced here, that you've heard a couple times in this episode, they're like, if this question's been asked too many times, feel free not to answer it. Sometimes I'm, spoilers, I like to hear myself talk. And so sometimes I'm okay answering these questions because I'm just like, I'll answer it again, no worries, anyway. But I don't mind going back and retreading some things because I really appreciate when we have new allies come in. I really appreciate new people not only coming in, but then finding out about Cup of Jones and being like, I want to watch this. This is great. I want to find out more information about Easy Allies and maybe just Jones personally. And so I appreciate that, but I have started to take little baby steps in starting to curb how long these shows are, how many questions I take. And yeah, the reason why I'm making this an editorial is because I think we are kind of on the precipice of me starting to make tough decisions on what I will accept or not. And there are different ways that I can do that. I think one is, like you were saying, answer them in on the actual post. So if you ask a question and it doesn't come up, or you see someone frustrated because they asked a question and it didn't come up in the week after, be like, hey, maybe go back to the week prior and see if Jones just answered that in the comments. So I will start to do that moving forward. Brian, you have a really good suggestion here, whereas if I have 2 business questions that are about something specifically, maybe consider consolidating those. Sometimes I do that, where I'll ask a question and then after that I'll say, that these 1 or 2 patrons also asked this very topical, timely question. One of the other things that I've considered maybe doing, I have a list of pronunciations so I can pronounce names correctly. I have a list of all of the that I received before of all of our feedback that we promised to do. Whenever I do something, I add it to that list. And I've been given a list from the community of feedback that has yet to actually manifest itself at Easy Allies. And so it's always fun to check that list and see not necessarily promises that we've made in the past, but things that we've talked about that could improve Easy Allies that we have not had time to do yet. It might be worth doing like strictly a frequently asked questions episode of Cup of Jones, and then maybe just posting that for posterity. And so if I get a comment, I can be like, hey, check out the FAQ episode of Cup of Jones, I answer it there. And maybe linking that video, or maybe that's a video that all of you could have on hand. And then maybe like once a year, we could do a frequently asked questions episode of Cup of Jones so I could address all of those things. Or maybe a post in the forums, or maybe just a written post, specifically a Cup of Jones post that I just write out in text that won't replace one episode of Cup of Jones, but will maybe be an extra episode. So maybe I can start doing that when something comes up and I'm just like, yes, this question again. Maybe I can add that to a list and then just have one big a repository of places you can go, a place you can go to get all of that important information that you need. But yeah, it is something, and obviously I'm also welcome to suggestions. We have almost all the suggestions that happen as Beaten Down Brian addresses here in his post that people say is they're like, hey, so I know you have this problem that we kind of feel is a problem, but you don't necessarily think is a problem. Here's a way you can add 20 minutes onto your workday to potentially solve that issue that you don't necessarily think is an issue. And I might not be chomping at the bit to do that because my work days are pretty well filled at the moment, but I just want to let you know that is something that I know is I wouldn't say getting out of hand, but potentially could be. Obviously, we want this Patreon to grow by leaps and bounds. We want there to be no limit on the amount of patrons that we will welcome into Easy Allies and the revenue that we will generate each month. And with that means more people will ask questions on Cup of Jones, more people will want to know information about us, more people will join the community showcase, more people will ask potentially repeat questions on the Q&A. And I think that it is something for the long-term reality of Easy Allies we need to address and need to find solutions for. So I have not offered a lot of concrete solutions for that, but I have talked about it a little bit, and I want to address that it is something that I am aware of, and that we will possibly have to tweak moving forward. Takeaways from this Cup of Jones: potentially consider having an Evil Allies event. Check out Collider's movie trivia schmodown and possibly get involved in that. Consider doing a Trailer Jones with Ian and Don. Consider an FAQ episode of Cup of Jones, just the highlights, which we talked about. And do one more pass with the Allies and see if anybody wants to play just Shapes and Beats, which Blood tried, but nobody was interested in doing that in the past. Again, so somebody talked about potentially reviewing hardware. We're not covering just Shapes and Beats. We're not doing our job. So there's so many games that come out every week, every month that we don't get a chance to review, and that's just the nature of Easy Allies. I'm going to turn all these lights off and crank that fan before we shoot the spoiler mode for Octopath Traveler, which will most likely be happening tomorrow. So stay tuned for more spoiler mode with myself and Ben Moore of Octopath Traveler. And stay tuned tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time. I will be sitting down on the couch and the chairs behind the couch with all of the Allies, probably taking a back seat to watch them play Overcooked 2 and scream at each other. It'll be a jolly time. And we'll record the podcast tonight. More shows and streams coming this week. Easy Living next week. Stay tuned for more information about that. Be wonderful to each other. Love and respect to all of you. Thank you for watching, everybody. Cheers.